Hey guys, back with some tactical videos here. I've not done one for a while, and as you can probably tell by the video title and the Trigon here, I'm going to do some Tyranids. I recently sold all my Eldar stuff, those of you that haven't been following, and bought a load of Tyranid stuff from eBay, been painting it up, and I figured there's not a whole lot of Tyranid Tactics stuff out there at the moment, so I thought I'd go through sort of what's going through my head when I'm thinking of building my Tyranid army, which is pretty much finished now. Just finishing off painting. I need to get a MySet export from somewhere. So it's basically just the thought process that I'm going through in putting this army together and how I'm going to play it and the units I'm going to use and why. And I thought we'd do a bit of a tactical video here. This first part is just going to be about what units you should be looking at taking in a Tyranid army to make it its most competitive. So I'm going to start with one of my personal favourite models in the Tyranid army, it's the Trigon. Now, a lot of people, there's mixed reviews surrounding the Trigon. Some people, like me, would probably include one in every Tyranid army they made. Other people would stay away from them completely. But personally, I use them all the time because I think they're absolutely fantastic. They come up from deep strike. They very, very rarely mishap. Unless you go off the board, you can't mishap. They're the same rules as Space Marine drop pods, which basically means, I drop here and I scatter this way, and there's an enemy unit there. You stop 1 inch away from him. You can't scatter onto an enemy unit and mishap, which is fantastic because these things are 200 points base before you even start adding any upgrades onto them, and you don't lose a 200 point 200 point unit to a mishap. No one wants to do that. So that's the first great thing. They can deep strike in behind your enemy, which is one of the Tyranid great strengths, is you sort of never know exactly where they're going to come at you. So the fact that this guy can deep strike is brilliant. Coupled in with his deep striking ability is the fact that his tunnel assault rule, where basically when he deep strikes, say here, and then he moves away, the spot where he deep struck in, you place a marker, similar size to the base it's supposed to be, but a lot of people just use a large blast template, basically creating a tunnel that other units can arrive from reserve in there. So if you're thinking late game, he comes in say turn 3, bring him up near an objective, move him on, assault a few things, he may die, but he leaves that tunnel there. Now if there's an objective close by, you can bring a unit of Genestealers or a unit of Tervigons through the tunnel and claim that objective late game. It's a little ploy that not many people will see coming. So already we've found a good use for his special rules. It's fantastic. Now let's look at maybe how you should take the Trigon. So the Trigon is 200 points base, and I'd recommend the only upgrade you should really take is adrenal glands. Toxin Sacs isn't going to do much good. It'll get you rerolls to wound, but most things you're going to be wounded on 2 anyway. Especially if you give him adrenal glands and you get the charge and you strength 7. But really, what you want is you need to be attacking first. Your Trigon's a monstrous creature, he gets 7 attacks, but he's only initiate 4. So if you're going into any squad with power weapons, you're gonna find this guy dying pretty easy. But when he gets the charge with adrenal glands, he's initiate 5, so you can at least kill off 20, 30, 40, 50% of the unit that's going to hit back, which can keep him alive a hell of a lot longer. Only 7 attacks. Bearing in mind he does get to reroll all his to hit rolls because he has 2 sets of silent talons. As you can probably tell by the model, it's got lots of silent talons. So this guy really is, the shock and awe type unit that Tyranids are so famed for. Tunnels up, your opponent, he can't charge on the turn, he deep strikes, which is unfortunate, but that would really make him overkill. But he tunnels up, he's got a 6-shot weapon at strength 5, so he can hit rear armors, etc. And then he just becomes a threat that has to be dealt with, and if he doesn't, then there's a 6 wound, toughness 6, 7 attack bearing, monstrous creature running around your enemy lines, and it just becomes a fantastic shock trooper. So personally, I'd recommend taking a Trigon, if not two. I run two in my 1750 point list. So I recommend one at least, if not two, even three if you're going, MC heavy. And always take adrenal glands. In terms of upgrading to primes, I would say yes if you can find the 40 points. Personally, I can't find those 40 points, so I stay away from it. What it offers you is not necessarily much more. It becomes a synapse creature, and he basically doubles the amount of shots he takes on his shooting attack at a slightly increased range, which is good. But for 40 points, I think it's a little. The benefit you gain isn't that much. Means he's unsynapsed, so he has to test for his instinctive behaviour feed at the start of every turn. But when in the second part of this little video series, we'll talk about how you can get around. There's another tactic to employ to basically ensure that he doesn't have to test for instinctive behaviour. So that's the Trigon covered. If I've missed anything, you want any more questions, or just comments, where the comment box is below. So we're going to move on to another unit that I think should be included in every single competitive Tyranid army. And some people won't like me for this, but it is the Hive Guard. Sorry about not being painted, they only arrived this morning, so just had time to stick them together, get them base coated and painted up as soon as possible. These are fine cast. I'm actually really surprised that I've managed to buy 3 fine cast models with 0 defects. I was expecting to have to. I bought these off the website, so I was expecting to have to go back to my local store with the receipt and get them replaced. But luckily, there's no defects. But that's another video for another day. Basically, the Tyranid Hive Guard should be in every list. Just for the simple fact is the ballistic skill 3, and they essentially carry missile launchers with -1 AP. They're not quite as good at penetrating armour as a missile launcher, but that's not why you take them. They get 2 shots each, strength 8, and the ballistic skill 3. So essentially the Space Marines with missile launchers. So these are your main things for taking down on light to medium vehicles, or even high toughness infantry. You can force things like Wraith Lords and Demon Princes to make saves, and when things have to make saves, things die. So these are fantastic, but the best thing about them is this. They're deployed on the board. There's a piece of terrain here. They're sat behind the terrain. I've got nothing around that I can use as a piece of terrain. Let's just say this is a piece of terrain. This pot of grass is a building. I'll say it's longer. They're behind this building, and the enemy's advancing from this way. Even if the Hive Guard cannot see the target, if they're within range, the 24-inch range that they have on their guns, the Hive Guard can shoot them, which is fantastic. It means that you can hide them behind cover, you can hide them behind your monstrous creature wall. That's done so many times with Tervigons and Carnifexes, just putting a line, then with 3 squads of Hive Guard behind, just pounding shots over the top, and they really do become an incredibly powerful unit. Just because, true line of sight screws pretty much everything these days, and cover's so readily available. Well, these guys just basically nullify cover. Now, there's been a lot of debate about how the Tyranid Hive Guard shooting thing actually works. I mean, the copy of the codex I've got, it's unclear as to when you do and don't get cover. So I'm going to try and explain the conclusions that sort of me and some friends and the general consensus that I've seen as how the rules should work. We'll talk about it now. We'll say this is a building. Okay, that's a building, and the Hive Guard are here. They're behind the building as well. I've got another pot for some sand. So the Hive Guard are behind the building at point A. Point B, 24 inches away, there's another building there, and there's a squad inside it. I just get a representative model because we'll need some we'll need something. There's a squad of Dire Avengers in the other building, and the Hive Guard is shooting them. If they're inside the building, they do not get cover, because the wording of the codex says you can only be granted cover saves if the cover is between the Hive Guard and the unit it's shooting at. So, like I said, it's not very clear, because normally that would grant you cover anyway, so I'm not exactly sure what they're trying to say. But like I said, this is excuse me, the general consensus that I've seen and heard as being widely accepted. So I'm shooting from behind my building into their building. That means no cover saves, which means my AP4 is ignoring their armors with no cover saves, so you're going to kill the Dire Avengers outright. Same thing if the Dire Avengers are here, out in the open, and I'm behind this building, they still get no cover, because I ignore this building as if it wasn't there, because I can shoot over it. The only time you would receive cover from Hive Guard is if the Dire Avengers, were behind this building like that. So pretty much, they cannot be seen. I think you have to think of it as this: if the shots are looping up and over, they'll hit into the cover before hitting the targets. That is the only widely accepted ruling of the Hive Guard that I've seen to be taken as solid rule. Like I say, it's very confusing, and it's not even in the FAQ what they actually meant by the rule. Unless I've missed it, I have not seen it in the FAQ. So basically, the general premise of the Hive Guard is they ignore cover, except for that very one specific incident. And like I say, considering they're carrying pretty much missile launchers, they're fantastic, and they should have at least one squad of 3 in every competitive Tyranid army. I've spent too much time talking about them now. So that's the Hive Guard. Basically, they're good at shooting things down. Keep them hidden, keep them from being shot at, and you can, like I say, as long as you're within your 24-inch range, you can shoot at people. You don't need line of sight, which makes them brilliant. You know, hitting advancing rhinos, raiders, venoms, anything that's low armor, they'll just shred through it. Actually, as soon as I mentioned venoms, another thing it doesn't actually, again, is a bit washy on, is the effect of flicker fields and smoke launchers. It doesn't say if you still get to gain your cover save from them. I assume not, because again it says the cover needs to be between the Hive Guard and the target, and you know, there's nothing between you. So, you know, GW, that's something you really need to clear up, be it an FAQ, an errata or something, because it's too grey, too much of a grey area. Well, I say that's the Hive Guard. We're going to move on to my other favourite Tyranid unit. It's these guys. Everyone knows these guys. It is the Genestealers. Now, Genestealers should be in every Tyranid army, regardless. I don't care if you're running a monstrous creature army, a horde army. Obviously, you're going to take the whole Genestealer list. They're going to be in there. But Genestealers should be in every army. They're too good not to use, if nothing else but for the fear that they create. The way people react when Genestealers are on the table is, it makes all their plans go from their head. You know, you can disrupt any decent battle plan by throwing a couple units of Genestealers on, you know, making them outflank. I've seen it happen so many times, and that's how you want to run them. Even on a 6-foot board, outflank these guys. Never start them deployed. The only time I could say to deploy them in your deployment zone at the start of the game is if you can guarantee that your opponent will come to you. If you're playing Orcs, for example, an Orc Horde army that's going to come to you, deploy them in cover and use them as counter-attack troops. Excuse me again. That is the only time, and even then I'd still be tempted to outflank them, just because coming in from behind or from the side, your opponent never really knows where they're going to come from. So you keep your element of surprise, where if you're on the table, your opponent knows where you are, they can avoid you more easily, they can, you know, they can shoot you for one because you're on the table for a couple of turns. So you always want to be looking to outflank these guys. A note on the young girl Genestealers. Personally, I think they're slightly too expensive to take, but if you do take them, they're brilliant. Now, Genestealers are so good because in any situation, they will come through for you. Like I said, if nothing else but generating fear. But as shock troops, they come on from the flank, you know, they move 6 inches up, then they get to fleet, then they get to assault. They've got such a huge threat zone, it's just insane. You know, 18 inches from either board edge, you know, that gives your opponent a small box in the middle to hide in if they know you're going to outflank, which we'll get into more in the second video of how you play the army. But Genestealers outflank all the time. That's point number 1. Point number 2 is upgrades. A lot of people will equip them as they flavour. You know, some people like to take Scythe and Talons to reroll the wands. Excuse me. Other people like to take the adrenal glands to get not necessarily +1 initiative because you don't really need it, but to get them up to strength 5. But personally, I think my favourite that I always take, and in my opinion again, the most effective upgrade, is to take Toxin Sacks. Now, Toxin Sacks basically gives them poison, 4-up poison, which means things at high toughness, you know, your Demon Princes, Wraith Lords, other Tyranid monstrous creatures, anything toughness 6 or higher that normally causes a problem is no longer a problem because you can wound them on 4s. And seeing as most, you know, possibly 80 to 90% of the things that you're going to be attacking are toughness 4 or less, it gives you rerolls to wound, which I found being, you know, wounded on 4s with a reroll is better than wounded on 3s and no reroll. Even if you do simple maths, you know, you wounded on 4s with a reroll, you've got 75% wound rate. Whereas 3s without a reroll, it goes down to 66%. So with basic maths, you're better off. As not in even thinking about the fact that you can wound monstrous creatures and high wound, high toughness creatures on a 4+. You know, you'd be surprised how quick a Wraith Lord dies when it has to take 17 armor saves, for example. I mean, that'd be a fantastic roll, mind, but you get the point. So, Genestealers, I won't really say any more about that. Always need to outflank. Another great thing about them is the troops, so they can outflank and take objectives, which again is something we'll look at in part 2 of the videos when we're looking at how to actually play the army, how to play the list. Well, like my personal list, but you can add and take your own units, etc. And I would always recommend Toxin Sacks. That's not saying that you have to take Toxin Sacks. Feel free to take Adrenal Glands or Scythe and Talons. If that's how you want to run them, that's how you want to run them. It's completely up to you. But my recommendation would be Toxin Sacks. So that's Genestealers. Now there's one more unit combination, I should say, that I would like to look at, and it's these guys. That's right, the lowly, and again, sorry for the unpaintedness, these look horrendous at the moment in this baby sick yellow, so you'll have to, these are 50%, work in progress painting, so you'll have to forgive the horrendous paint jobs, but it's the lowly Tervigons. Now you may think, well, what's so good about Tervigons? But these guys are your bread and butter, especially when you throw in one of these guys. This is a Tervigon. It's converted from a Carnifex. There's the gaunt coming out, the egg sac underneath there. So this should be your bread and butter, and most Tyranid players will agree that this is one of the most competitive units, or unit combinations that we can put on the table. You want to be looking at running at least 2 Tervigons, if not more, if you want to go heavy on the horde. But basically, this is what you want, because these guys are 5 points each, scoring unit. They essentially have a bolter, you know, with it's not rapid fire and it's shorter range, but essentially it's a bolt gun, and you know they come with a Tervigon. Now if you don't unsure of how a Tervigon works, basically every turn you get to roll 3 dice. For each Tervigon on the board you roll 3 dice. So I rolled 11. That means I would have spawned 11 more gaunts. So this squad of 10 now becomes a squad of 10 and a squad of 11. It's tough to spawn somewhere within 6 inches of the Tervigon. Which is insane, because unless you roll doubles, like I did in this roll, that's every turn. So it's 11, and then say turn 2 would be 10. I've still rolled doubles again, but you know, you get the idea. There's 9. So if you're playing a 1750 point game or a 1500 point game, and you've got 2 Tervigons, you can end up playing an extra 200 points of free models against your opponent, and you'll just swarm. You know, gaunts don't live long. That's the first thing you need to remember playing Tyranids. Things don't live long at all. But if you can get to the point where you've got nearly 100 gaunts on the table, it doesn't matter if they won't live long. You'll just swamp them. You know, they get rid of one squad of 10, or there's another squad of 10 right behind them. And there's just, like, I played a game last week against Chaos, and just bogged down obliterators turn after turn after turn, just with gaunts. Yeah, they were dying and I was losing combat, but I was fearless because of the Tervigon and stopped the obliterators shooting. They eventually ground them down and killed them. And that's how your gaunts work. You just grind units into the ground and just stop your opponent from doing what he wants to do. You know, it doesn't matter if they're gonna die. If they can tie up a shooting unit for 2 turns, do it. Sacrifice them 5 points each. Free if they come from the Tervigon. It's just, I can't stress enough how important the Tervigon and Tervigon combination will be in competitive settings. It's just brilliant. I know I keep repeating myself, and I'm sorry, but I really need to stress how amazing this really is. And then when you couple it with the fact of the Tervigon is a Psyker, and it has a psychic power which you should always take for 15 points. You may think, whoa, 15 points, that's quite a bit. But you cast a psychic test, which is a pass, and then these get feel no pain. And when your Tyranids getting any kind of save whatsoever is brilliant. You know, again, the same game against Chaos, the amount of feel no pains that I got that I shouldn't have done kept my entire army alive for so much longer. It's the way it works. Is when you're advancing, as that's Tervigon, we'll say this is 1 squad of gaunts. Obviously you can't take him as a squad of 5, but for the purposes, you know, you have 1 squad of gaunts there. You spawn 1 unit out in front, like this. Spread them out as much as you can. They get cover save, and then you cast Feel No Pain on these. So normally, instead of them dying instantly, you know, say you take 5 wounds from bolters, instead of 5 dead, you roll Feel No Pains, and there's only 2 dead. So it really is worth taking Catalyst every time. Take Catalyst on your Tervigons, and it'll keep your Tervigons alive so much longer as you advance forward. And this is what you're going to use when we talk about in the next video. A lot of this is going to link in to the next video I'm going to do about how to play the list, but it's just like a guide of the units that is going to be included. This is going to be your main tool of how you go about winning the game, of how you put pieces in the places, so to speak. This is the board, this is the chessboard right here. I'm going to call it, in future reference, this is going to be the chessboard, because this marks out the sections of the board where you want your opponent to be. And that's what playing this list is about. It's about getting your opponent where you want them to be. Not where they want to be, where you want them to be. And that's what the next video is going to be about. Well, there is one more thing I want to just quickly say. I don't have the model, but there's one more unit that needs to be included. In fact, no. There's just a couple more things I need to say. There's a unit I forgot to mention, and I'm just going to get it now. It's this guy. it is the Doom of malan'tai. This is my Doom of malan'tai conversion. As you can see, it's got some venom throat tentacles on it, which are bent. So just bend that back out. It's got venom throat tentacles. It's got the small Morlock sizing talons, a tail. Basically, my vision for the Doom of malan'tai was a lot of people just give him a massive head, but I wanted to do more than just give him a big head. The way I see the Doom is like the pinnacle of Tyranid evolution, so to speak. So I see him as adopting the best traits of the other successful Tyranid species. So like I say, he's got venom throat in there, like, you know, the sizing talons could be like raveners, zoanthropes, things like that. But that's irrelevant. You know, we're talking about tactics here, not modelling. So excuse me, guys. Basically, every Tyranid list should include a Doom of malan'tai. The Doom of malan'tai is so utterly and ridiculously broken, it is untrue. For 90 points, what this guy can do, you know, it borders on cheese. It really does. But seeing as a Tyranid Codex isn't the best at the moment, we need all the advantages we can get. So for 90 points, for those of you that aren't aware of what the Doom can do, I'm going to give you a quick demonstration. The Doom of malan'tai is 90 points, but in every single game you want to be taking a mycetic spore, because if you don't, you'll die. So you come down in your mycetic spore right in the heart of the enemy. And the best thing about the Doom is any enemy within 6 inches of the Doom takes a leadership test on 3 dice every shooting phase. Not just your shooting phase, in their shooting phase as well. So you come down, say there's 4 squads surrounding him, you know, the Space Marines, just roll 14s, that's 5 wounds on 1 squad. That squad would be okay. 6 wounds on another squad, and then the 4th squad would be okay. So he's caused 11 wounds, 11 Space Marines. He's already made his points back, there and then, killing 11 Space Marines. But the best thing about that, he starts with 4 wounds. This is his other rule. Starts with 4 wounds. For every wound he inflicts, be it through his power or through combat, he gains another wound, up to a maximum of 10, which he's just killed 11, so he'd easily be at the maximum of 10. So he's at 10 wounds. But the other good thing about him is his strength is equal to his wounds. So now he's strength 10 with 10 wounds, and 3 up invulnerable save, and what more can you ask for? He's so hard to kill. His only weakness is his toughness 4, and he's not immune to instant death. So you get a lucky melter shot, a missile launcher shot, anything strength 8, a force weapon, you're going to kill him. He does have a 3 up invulnerable save, but you hit him with enough, he's going to fail one eventually. His other great thing that you can do is pass a psychic test, which, of course, because on the demonstration he fails, but let's say he passes. There you go, passes. He gets to use an AP1 large blast template attack at his strength, which is 10. So he's got a strength 10, AP1 large blast assault weapon, which is insane. Okay, so he uses his blast weapon. The only downside is he loses D3 wounds when he uses it. So he'd have lost 1 wound for using his template weapon. That's the only downside to him. Some people don't like to use him because of that, because he takes wounds from his main weapon. But I say, what the hell? You're gonna, you know, you may lose 3 wounds doing it, but the amount you'll kill with a strength 10 AP1 blast, you'll get those wounds back, pretty much guaranteed. So the Doom should be in every Tyranid list, along with the Genestealers. I think they're the 2 most essential units you can have, maybe along with the Hive Guard. I would gold star the Doom and the Genestealers, just because what they offer you is insane, and the Doom has got a specific role to play. Again, we'll look at in part 2 of the video. The Doom has got a very, very specific role to play in the running of the army. Now there's one last thing I'm going to say. Sorry about the carpet, I'll give you some dice to look at. There's one more model we need to talk about, and I don't have the model yet. It's still in order, not received it yet. And it's the Hive Tyrant. Hive Tyrants should be included in larger games. I'd say stay away from them in small games. Even 1500 points, maybe avoid them. Because the way you need to run a Hive Tyrant to be effective is you're looking at 240 points at least. At least 240 points. For him to be effective. Which is a shame, because he's a fantastic model. The way I run my Hive Tyrant is just simple. Wings and adrenal glands. There's other options like Hive Commander, Old Adversary, or I can't remember the other one. I'm sure someone will help me out. But they're all 25 points each. They do offer fantastic upgrades, fantastic abilities, but for 25 points, I just can't find the points in my army to fund that. So, unfortunately, I stay away from those upgrades. Basically, all you need is wings and adrenal glands. So when he has wings, it makes him jump infantry, which gives him a massive, an absolute massive threat range. I think he has fleet. I'll have to double check my codex, which I'm not going to do now, but I think he has fleet. So he can move 12, fleet, and then assault. I might be wrong, he probably hasn't got fleet, but even still, 18 inches for a monstrous creature is insane. And then you want adrenal glands. Again, not necessarily for the initiative, because he's initiative 5. We're going to initiative 6. We'll put him before most characters, which is good, but there's not really going to matter, and we'll get to that in 1 second. The reason why you want adrenal glands is to get him strength 7, because strength 7 makes him a threat to land raiders on a charge. I mean, yeah, you can do it with strength 6, but you know, getting 2d6 with strength 6, now that's only a glance. You know, adrenal glands, that becomes a penetrating hit, and as we all know, -2 on the damage table can be the difference between wrecking it and not. So you really need adrenal glands just to get him up to strength 7 on the charge, because it will help in so many circumstances. It will help in terms of other upgrades, in terms of weapons. What you want to be looking at, again, in my opinion, but I think most people will agree, what you want to be looking at in terms of weapons is just sticking with the basic. Just keeping in with Lash Whip and Bone Sword. In this codex, they actually made the Lash Whip and Bone Sword good, which is fantastic because it comes as the standard weapons for Hive Tyrant. Quick recap if you don't know what to do. A Lash Whip, if you're in base to base with a Hive Tyrant, makes you initiative 1. That's why the initiative bonus from Furious Charge doesn't really matter, because you're going to be attacking things that are initiative 1 anyway. The other great thing about the Bone Sword is I cause a wound and you don't save it, you have to take a leadership test or you die. So, you know, characters, monstrous creatures can, you can see them dropping quite quickly to the Hive Tyrant, just because the Bone Sword rule is now awesome. It never used to be that good. It used to just be a power weapon. Well, it didn't even, it used to be a power weapon. You just ignored armor saves because you're a monstrous creature, but you get the idea. So anyway, that's the Hive Tyrant, and they're the units you should be looking at. Sorry the video went on for so long. I hope you managed to listen all the way through. So I say there's going to be part 2 where the units we've just looked at, we're going to look at how you actually use those units in unison on the table, and how you go about cornering off your opponent, how you box them in, and how you employ the chessboard. I'm going to coin that name for my tactic. It's the chessboard tactic, because as all great chess players know, it's a lot like poker. You don't play chess, you play the person across the board. You know, you feed them pieces, you make them think they're in control, and then ultimately you pull some trump card on them. Which is the way the army works. Is you need to almost in a sense make your opponent feel like he's in control, but it's essentially you're pulling the strings every decision on the table, and that's the way the army needs to play. So it's going to be coined the chessboard tactic, and we'll talk about that in the next video. So I'm going to end this one now because it's already gone on way too long, way longer than I wanted it to. So thanks for sticking with it, guys. As usual, comments, questions, anything, all go in the box down there. And if you haven't already, subscribe up there, or up there, whichever way, I don't know. So yeah, remember, comment, like, subscribe, do all the usual jazz, and I'll get part 2 out soon as. Alright guys, cheers.